In this episode, I'm continuing to offer you a non-personal perspective on memories. So having looked at using the NPA process to heal your painful memories last week, today we're switching our focus to those great memories that you have. Those memories are a goldmine, but so often, without realizing it, you use them like a vault and lock away so much of your potential. So in this episode, I'm going to share how with a little NPA, you can power up your positive memories to expand your happiness, open to greater abundance, and unleash your forgotten potential. So stay with me and let's dive into Power Up Your Positive Memories with NPA. Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. If you're looking to improve your life, to heal, to grow, and mature as an individual, but maybe you found that some of the personal development and consciousness stuff has given you the impression that you need to be super serious and vigilant to get anywhere meaningful, or feeling like maybe you're just not up to snuff, well, this show is here to remind you of your humanity, and in fact that's where your true joy and brilliance lies. With over 25 years of experience in the transformation biz and having developed NPA, one of the world's simplest, pressure-free approaches to growth and well-being, if I do say so myself, I'll be sharing tips, steps, and insights that'll help you navigate all the aspects of life as a growth-seeking being. On this show, it comes to you with a good dose of humour, maybe a smattering of colourful language, a reminder not to take things so personally, and most importantly, to be kind to yourself along the way. Make sure you hit that follow button, and let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. I'm delighted that you're here, and we are at episode number 140. That means there's 139 previous episodes to go binge listening to. If you're new to the show, welcome by the way if you are. And it also means that the show notes, you can find those if you go to www.beabrillianthuman.com/140. So this is kind of a part two today, really. We looked at healing your history last week and at memories in general from a non-personal perspective. And by the way, if you're new here and you're going, non-personal perspective, that's a curious term. What does that mean? And he says these words, NPA. Well, letters, NPA, stands for non-personal awareness. What's he talking about? Well, if you haven't already downloaded the NPA sheet, the NPA process is a simple way to stop taking things personally, but it goes so much deeper than that. And in fact, in these two episodes, I'm talking a little bit about how that operates in terms of expanding your understanding of non-personal awareness, and the quantum physics of it all and all that kind of thing. So you can go and find the NPA sheet, which you can get for free if you go to www.thenpaacademy.com, and you'll see a quick start button at the top of the screen there. Hit that and it will effortlessly take you to a place where if you give me your email and your name, I can send you the sheet so you can then apply what you learned today in the show. So also today, we're sponsored by the Harmony Equation, which is, of course, my own event. That's how much we attract sponsorship. I just love myself that much. One day, this show will be big enough to attract actual sponsors who pay me money. In the meantime, I'm going to encourage you to buy my excellent stuff. And the Harmony Equation in particular, which is coming up, if you're listening to this like the day it comes out, we've got one of these events coming up very soon. Get yourself to the URL, which will be, of course, www.thenpaacademy.com/harmony. That will get you there. It's all about resolving conflict. It's an amazing tool with some NPA thrown in. I use it with so many of my clients, and I'd love you to come along, especially if you're some kind of therapist or coach and you're here and you're interested in helping other people. It's a fantastic tool to add to your tool belt, and I'd love you to join me for the half-day event. There's two. When I run it twice, different time zones for different people, so you get to choose which of those you come along to. So check it out. There'll be a nicely produced ad about halfway through this show giving you more details, but that's the sponsor of today. And of course, I'll be referencing NPA. I've told you where to get hold of that. And also, I'll be talking a little bit when we get to the how-tos about some of the frames that you learn if those people that go through NPA Mastery, which is our practitioners training, get to learn like nearly now 40 different frames, which are ways to apply in different circumstances NPA, the NPA process, and non-personal awareness, which means, of course, that those practitioners who are already certified will have access to all these things and can help you with that. But don't worry, I will be giving you stuff you can use based on just downloading the free sheet to help you to power up your positive memories. So that's the blurb. Let's dive in. We're going to start with a bit of a recap about memories and then talk about the gold mine, the vaults of your mind with those positive memories. So I'm going to do a very brief recap of some of the things we talked about last week. If you want the full story, you can go and find it. You can, if you're on one of the many podcast platforms, you'll find it as well, the last episode, which will be episode 139. If you want to go straight to the show notes, and you can listen to it on the show notes, again, beabrillianthuman.com/139. It's always the episode number in actual numbers, not written out, to find any episode. If you want to watch a random episode, pick a number that's below this, stick it after www.beabrillianthuman.com, and you'll get to have a random show. I'm off on one today, clearly. So yeah, a quick recap. If you want to have it in detail, listen to episode 139. But fundamentally, what are memories from a non-personal perspective? So last week we were talking about history, and I talked about how history isn't actually history. If you look at the energetics, the quantum physics of memory, even the way that those that study memory as a chemical phenomenon, all these things, fundamentally, or you look at the spiritual side of it, it's all in the present. That's true of positive and negative memories. But when it comes down to it, what we do is we personalize experiences to those times. Personalization means that you tie your identity to something. In general terms, if someone says something not very nice to you, like you're an idiot, if some part of you tags that and says that's me, that is, you've taken it personally, then you'll live out the effects of that. And the NPA process itself, of course, helps untangle that. It unglues that association and sets you free in that way. And then we also talked last time about how, in particular, negative or difficult memories, you can often form an identity around that. You can solidify the personalization. And I gave you some great ways to work with those negative or painful historic experiences with the NPA process. Now, today, it's all about positive memories, because a lot of the focus I've noticed in this wonderful industry of self-awareness and personal development is on the pain in the past, which makes sense because it's so prevalent, of course, that we do tend to personalize our history. It's about us after all, right? And then a lot of the sort of psychotherapeutic models, and if you go back to in popular awareness, the whole Freudian thing, the classic thing is the joke about going to a psychiatrist is tell me about your childhood. It's right. It's so embedded in our ideas of what makes us who we are. But I don't think there's that much that's been looked at in terms of the power of what is stored in our positive memories. So how does that work? Well, sometimes our positive memories are alive in us and we live them today, and it forms a positive thing. But where it's really interesting is where we kind of lock away. I said in the intro, it's like we put that gold in a vault and throw away the key because somehow it's in the past. That lovely stuff is forgotten, lost, not available anymore is the story we tell ourselves because we've specifically personalized it to that time period. So we can do this in lots of different ways. I was kind of taught that this was a way to personalize things very early on in the journey of NPA and non-personal awareness. There was a client who came along and she sort of had this spiritual mission, if you like, to experience oneness. that was her kind of expectation. That's what did she want from, paying me money and spending time with me. And we did a lot of great work in that first session. But from her perspective, the way that she wanted to experience it, she had high expectations, or very specific, I wouldn't say high, very specific expectations about what that might look and feel like. And she didn't quite get there in that session. But during that session, she talked about how she loved to dance. And I have spent a lot of time doing a particular kind of dance called 5 rhythms. I love 5 rhythms, and I got this sort of sense just to sort of say, well, you love to dance, maybe you want to try 5 rhythms. So off she goes and comes back for her next session, and she was like full of enthusiasm. Oh my God, Joel, she said, it's amazing. She said, I did that 5 rhythms thing, and I felt at one with everything. I just felt that oneness. You were so right. She, enthused about it. And then she said the thing which really struck me of how we personalize a state or an idea to a specific situation. She said, I get it, Joel. I just need to go to 5 rhythms, and then I can experience oneness. It's as if in that moment I realized that she then in her mind somehow said, well, it's only in the 5 rhythm space where I can feel oneness. So the rest of my life, hey, to hell with oneness. I need to do 5 rhythms. You see how sometimes we lock 2 things together? That is actually a form of personalization. It's personalized the experience, in this case of oneness, to the activity of 5 rhythms. So why am I talking about this? Well, this is the exact mechanism that means we sometimes tie up specific states, abilities, access to certain patterns within ourselves, delicious, yummy states, to situations which are then in our past. So the great thing that I did with her in that particular case, say, aha, well, let's do some NPA, which we did, which meant she could experience that oneness was not personal to the 5 rhythms and could expand it into other areas of life. In that same way, that's what we do when you've locked something away in a memory. I used to be so happy. Used to be. It's kind of a clue. In terms of the clues of where you looked away, I used to be so happy, free, whatever. It's like you've consigned that, you've personalized that to some historic circumstances. I remember when. I used to feel so free. Again, it's like those times, that history, they're positive memories, but somehow you've locked the experience of that into that past. So with a little NPA, and we're going to go into exactly how you can do that and different ways that you can do that, it's been locked away in there. So another good clue for it is nostalgia. Any form of nostalgia, it's like this kind of wistful looking to the past of when it used to be a certain way, and it feels like that stuff has gone or isn't available. And we have loads of stories, right? It's like age, because of my age, or because of my circumstances. Yes, but that back then I was happy because I didn't have responsibilities and a family and and I was free. I could just go out on my chopper. That's an old bike. If you were raised in the 70s, you'll know what I'm talking about. And just play on the building sites, because we used to do that back then. But now I've got responsibilities. There's all sorts of reasons can come around it, but fundamentally the mechanism is you've personalized the experience or the state, or that liberty to that history. So how does doing NPA make a difference? Well, fundamentally, if we go back to the fundamental nature, the non-personal nature of reality, those states in the past, happiness is a good example. I was so happy back then. That particular happiness that there's that nostalgia for, or that sense of loss of, is just an energy, right? Now, at the time, we felt we could give ourselves permission to include ourselves in that vibration. We're part of that. We can have access to that because our various setup, our identity about who we are says that's okay. As we get older, suddenly our identity tells us, because now we've got a job and a this and a that and the other, that tells us that we get to be excluded from it. So it's there back in the past. And one of the things that NPA does, there's two ways that the NPA process works. Either letting go of the yucky stuff, so that's where you said, I'm an idiot, that's me, that is, you hold on to it. And NPA just opens the doors and let it pass so that you realize that's not you, actually. And when you've done this thing where you've put it in the past, or you've excluded yourself from experiencing that, you said, that's not me. That's the past me. That's not me now, right? NPA does the same mechanism. It opens the doors and said, you know what, this is non-personal, or as the quantum physicists say, it's non-local. It exists everywhere, like the broadcast of radio waves. And you can actually have access to it. You can include yourself in the vibration. So the expression of that energy might be different, but the experience of it is fully available. So you don't need to lock that stuff away in the past. In fact, there's probably loads of yummy stuff in your past, which you've then consigned to that, locked it away, decided that's not who you are now, and you can have some fun and play with really opening yourself to allowing yourself to be included in that vibration going forward. And we're going to get into how to do that. I'm going to give you some ideas of how you can work with the NPA process to play with that and invite that more into your life after a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by the Harmony Equation, our live online workshop where you get to discover the world's simplest tool for resolving conflict and help your clients find harmony. Now, if you've got clients that seem stuck, blocked, and unable to move past certain issues, then chances are they have unresolved conflict, and the approaches you've been using so far haven't hit the spot. Well, you're going to love this event, and you and your clients will love the truly unique, powerful, and effortless way you can guide them to the resolutions they need once you have this tool in your hands. In fact, the work you'll learn at the event is so magical, I use it with nearly every client. As Ronnie, a previous attendee, says, you've created something very special and made it a simple and effective tool to cut out the complexities we add to our lives. The work you're doing really resonated with me and the work I'm now doing with my clients. So if you're a healer, a therapist, a coach, or do any kind of change work with clients, then this is an incredible tool to add to your skill set. So head over to www.thenpaacademy.com/harmony and grab your spot today. That's thenpaacademy.com/harmony to get all the details and join the Harmony Equation today. So, if you listen to last week's episode, there'll be some crossover here in what I say, but it bears repeating, and there are some different nuances when it comes to working with positive memories that I want to highlight with you. So, just like last week, I started off with probably my favorite technique for working with memories, which is dialoguing. You can dialogue with a memory. What does that look like? Well, last week with the painful memories, it's like going back. Imagine you can go back to that time and having a conversation with all of those parties that are involved with it. So that can be sort of fairly more obvious when it comes to painful stuff, because maybe there's parental issues, there's issues with mum and dad, and they were fighting, and little you was upset, so you can talk to mum and dad and little you, and all of those conversations become what we call a spew in NPA, which is just a natural expression from which, within the NPA process, if you've downloaded the sheet, it says notice what pops out, and then put what pops out exactly as it is into the 6 lines of the NPA process. Now that works the same with positive memories, but often with positive memories, it's interesting. There can be times where there's a very clear, very specific memory, in which case you can do it exactly the same. You can go to that memory. So I talked about, just going off, being free on my chopper bike, playing on the building site. I might go in my mind and meet that little me, 6, 7 years old, and have a conversation and go, hey, what's going on? And he'd go, yeah, I feel amazing. Well, how are you feeling amazing? Well, he'd say to me what was going on. And from that, there would be something that popped out to give me access to it. That is a way to do it. But I think for the most of my experience with general sense of nostalgia, or when you hear things like "I remember when" or "it used to be that I could," it can be actually very straightforward because you get a sense of what it is you're lacking. So in a way, it's like anything that you feel you used to have. It's like just have a sense. You can just get a sense of what is it that I feel I had that I don't have now. Now, the ways to spew there, to get a sense of what's coming out of you, what it is. It might come in consciousness very clearly. Be aware that you're not putting some kind of somebody else's label onto the experience, because you get words like, I don't know, liberty, freedom, whatever. That may not be exactly the way you say it. That's why we talk about doing a spew. One way you can do that is you just either journal it out, just go through the journal and write out what was that thing, and then look at what it is that pops out to you from your journaling, and that will give you a clearer sense of how to connect in a true way to the energy that you feel a lack of. Now, it's kind of a weird thing. Sometimes it can be what makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense. But when you do the process with it, because that's what you'll end up doing, is running it through the process, saying the simple lines out loud, with your keyword, your phrase, the thing you've picked up. We call it a cookie cutter in NPA. All as part of it, you'll set out loud, and then sometimes the thing that you've picked out that didn't make sense suddenly makes a lot of sense because it taps into the energy of what you're focused on. So you can keep it quite simple with positive memories in that way. And sometimes we get a sense about something, but we're not quite clear what it is. That's where either if you can access a memory, you can then have that dialogue. In Mastery, there's a couple of frames that are specifically designed for this, and they're very interesting because the main one that really deals with this is, we call it the lost aspect frame. In that, there is a specific setup where if you're a coach listening to this, the way you would recognize this is, as a client would literally be saying, there's this lost part of me, or a forgotten part. It would be fairly clear. And then the frame gives a syntax for how you can then go and help that client, or yourself if you end up working with someone who knows how to do this, accessing the specific aspect and getting very clear on, what is that energy, what is the label for that energy, all that really good stuff. And the thing about those frames is that they help you expand beyond even memory. So there's another frame that we do, and this will give you an insight into how you can play with this, which I call the other you frame. Because if you think about it, everything is just energy, and a lot of the time our experience is based on memory, but we also have experiences that aren't directly our own energy. All right. So in that way, you still can do a thing where you associate a certain experience with, say, somebody else. It's not me, it's them. And one of the ways we do that is we imagine that there's another us in some other universe that somehow has access to this and we don't. Well, what you've done there is you've personalized it, in a sense, to this universe or that universe. And you can use the same mechanism with whether you dialogue or whether you just get a sense of it in any way, shape or form, where you can get a sense of something that you feel you lack. You can use NPA to let it in. Even in the realm of fantasy, it's like whatever you can imagine is actually available to you. Now, the super simple approach, which you can find on the sheet, again, if you haven't already got the sheet for NPA, go to www.thenpaacademy.com and you'll see the quick start button there. Click that and you can just get hold of the sheet. And on the sheet, you've got Q1 and Q2. We talked about Q1, which is the initial question for looking at what you're experiencing that's causing you pain. Q2 is more a question about what you're not experiencing. So it focuses on the things that you lack. If you just trust that, and then as a result of listening to this episode of the podcast, you understand that you're not limited to just a general sense. You can go to your past, you can go to other universes, you can go and what are you not experiencing that Richard Branson is. And then follow the steps on the sheet. You do the spew, you find the cookie cutters, you go through the NPA process. It's a wonderfully simple way. Q2 on that sheet is often overlooked. It's so powerful for accessing resources that we've just excluded ourselves from. It's very, very simple and super powerful. So again, I mentioned in the sort of intro, this expand your happiness. We covered that with that, but it can open you to greater abundance. Again, we personalize that abundance, the whole concept of it's the 1%, and then the rest of us poor folk with no money is like, or no abundance or whatever. It's like we put it outside of ourselves. So you can focus on abundance. Ask that question too, but focus on abundance. In relation to abundance, what am I not experiencing that I'd like to allow to come would be a way to really focus that question, but to look at abundance, to allow more abundance to come in. So go get the sheet if you haven't got it already and have a play. So hopefully this little double of looking at memories and non-personal awareness and how they work together has inspired you to have some fun, to go play, to use NPA in ways that can help you use your history, positive and negative, to come to greater freedom and peace in your life right now. As ever, the show notes, and there'll be links to all the things that I've mentioned, will be under the number of this episode, 140. So www.babrillianthuman.com/140 to get to the show notes for today. And there'll be links, obviously, from that page. You can get access to the NPA sheet from there. And also, if you've been listening and going, he's talking about NPA frames, how curious. Well, of course, the harmony equation is a frame you can learn very soon. Go and check out that link, thenpaacademy.com/harmony. And if you're someone who would like to become a certified NPA practitioner, again, you'll find links for NPA mastery there as well. So I hope you've liked this show. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. I've got a couple of interviews coming up that I'm very excited about. So I will see you next time. And until then, have a fantastic time. Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this show, I'd love you to do me a solid and tell someone about it. They can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and most other podcast platforms. Plus, if you visit the website, www.BABrillianthuman.com, you can share the show notes to social media and make my day. Also, make sure you hit that follow button, and if you haven't yet downloaded the NPA Process sheet, head on over to joelyoungmpa.com and get your free copy today. Big love, and see you next time.